Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Binyamin, Tjong-Alvares with the top reports from the world economy. In our video reports today, we cover Israel's worst environmental disaster stresses the need for renewable energy, and some U.S. communities turn to ultra-sustainable housing. First, the headlines. The price of oil fell below $65 to a 5-year low after OPEC lowered forecasts of demand for its crude to their lowest level in a decade. The benchmark U.S. oil price slid 4.5% on the New York Mercantile Exchange to $60.94 a barrel. The price slide battered energy stocks, with ExxonMobil dropping 3%, Chevron falling 3.4%, and Brazil's Petrobras slipping 4.9%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average slumped to its biggest one-day decline since October 9th, but stayed close to a record hit on Friday. China's central bank is pumping about $65 billion into the country's banking system to help boost their lending abilities. Some $81 billion in loans made in September by the central bank to the country's top 5 state-owned banks is coming due this month. Chinese banks have pressed the central bank to lower the share of deposits they're required to set aside against financial trouble. The Bank of China fears lowering reserve requirements to boost credit would send too much credit into sectors that have already suffered overcapacity, such as steel and real estate. The Bank of Russia increased its key interest rate for the 5th time this year, but failed to stem its currency's worst collapse in 16 years. The central bank raised borrowing rates to 10.5% from 9.5%. Following the decision, the ruble traded 0.8% weaker at 55.3 per dollar, breaching 55 to the dollar for the first time. Policymakers have so far spent about $80 billion on defending the currency and shifted to a free-floating exchange rate ahead of schedule last month. Controversial new package of reforms in France aimed at energizing its crisis-hit economy sparked outrage in the French capital. A plan to extend Sunday shopping touched off a firestorm of criticism, even among fellow members of the ruling socialists. France's economy minister wants to allow retail outlets in tourist zones to stay open until midnight and on Sundays year-round. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the French reforms were insufficient, and Brussels slammed the limited progress made by Paris. Detroit officially exited the biggest ever U.S. municipal bankruptcy on Wednesday, allowing Michigan's largest city to start a new chapter with a lighter debt load. The city, which filed for bankruptcy in July 2013, will shed about $7 billion of its $18 billion of debt and obligations. Once a symbol of U.S. industrial might, decades of population loss, rampant debt, and financial mismanagement left Detroit struggling to provide basic services to residents. Most of the settlements with major creditors will be paid with a distribution of about $720 million of bonds. The plan also aims to provide Detroit with $1.7 billion through June 30th, 2023 to improve city services and infrastructure.
We are thankful that at this point the city will emerge later today, by the time I go to bed, from bankruptcy. We will exit. And we look forward truly to a better time for the city going forward.
Just before the opening of Israel's annual Green Energy Conference in Eilat, 5 million liters of oil spilled into a national park a mere 15 kilometers north of the city. The scope of this environmental disaster has made the need for institutionalizing renewable energy in the Jewish state ever more pressing. The following report has the details.
Here in the Negev Desert in the south of Israel, an environmentally protected area became the site of the worst environmental disaster in the country's history. This oil pipeline, extending from the Red Sea to Ashkelon on the coast just north of the Gaza Strip, dumped more than 5 million liters of oil into a national park just 15 kilometers from Eilat. The calamity has drawn little reaction from the government, but some say this may be an opportunity for a wake-up call in the country that consumed less than 1% renewable energy in 2013.
Hopefully this oil spill, if there's anything that can come out of it, would be an awareness as a wake-up call that if we can't prevent an oil spill out here in the Arava on land, how are we going to prevent oil spills 150 kilometers in the ocean? And there's another way, and it's called the sun. And the sun doesn't recognize the border here with Jordan, and it's clean and it's free.
By coincidence, the spill took place just before the opening of the annual Green Energy Conference in Eilat. For 8 years, the city and the region have invested in renewable energy, increasing solar capacity and experimenting with ecological solutions. The Arava region is a leader in a country that only aimed for 5% renewable energy by the end of this year, but will only reach about 1.5%. Despite this, the Minister of Energy and Water says the country could reach 10% by 2020, but not without conditions.
Because we would like to have 10% of our energy is coming from renewable energies, but on the other hand, we would like to have it in a price that won't affect the tariff of electricity in a way that it will be much more expensive.
Part of the government's plan for staving off high living costs in the near term is utilization of gas discovered off the Israeli coast, which may help the government to reduce electricity bills. Still, this plan is not focused on renewables.
If the government subsidizes and supports the renewable energy industry the same level that it did with the gas industry, I think that most of the electricity in Israel would be produced now from renewables, something which the government failed to do.
Dorit Bennett, Director of Renewable Initiatives for the region, is sorry for what she sees as short-term thinking.
Even though it's a little bit much more expensive, still you need to get into the field of renewable energy, and by the time the price will reduce. And this is what happened, by the way, that we got in 2008 when it was 50 cents, 50 cents, American cents per kilowatt, and now we are 13 cents, 13 cents per kilowatt.
This isn't sufficient for the current government, though. They are looking for companies with projects that minimize costs as opposed to focus on quality. It's a plan criticized in part by the scientific director of the Ministry of Infrastructure.
This mechanism of tender will be in favor of the photovoltaic, which is going down with the price, but it is not serving well the interest of the electricity market itself, because the electricity market has to have a better, energy storage and a better coverage of the hours of the day.
Earlier this week, rains came to Eilat, pushing the oil-drenched soil into the groundwater and the Red Sea. This is a massive disaster in one of the most beautiful ecosystems on the planet. However, it's an ecological situation that seems, for now, not to be too worrying in Israeli political circles.
Joining us now is Noam Segal, Policy Director of the Israel Energy Forum, which seeks to strengthen Israel's environment, economy, and security through a sustainable energy policy based on energy efficiency and increased use of renewables. Mr. Segal, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Benjamin.
So, what are the financial implications of this disaster?
I think that this disaster symbolizes the cost that we are paying for our dependence on fossil fuels. It's not just the mere cost of cleaning these very unique nature reserves. It's the air that we breathe that is polluted, and the groundwater which is polluted. I think that we are starting to pay the price of oil dependence is just too expensive for us to keep absorbing.
On that note, is Israel too dependent on oil?
Israel is fortunately becoming less dependent on oil. We have started to use natural gas, and renewable energy is starting very slowly, but it's starting to pick up. However, oil is still the only fuel that we can use in the transport sector.
Which is for most of the world.
Yes, but Israel can do a lot in terms of public transport, and it is investing in oil alternatives, fuel choices. It's something that the government is investing in.
Okay, on that topic, I mean, you are an activist who promotes energy policy. I mean, would you say that from your perspective, renewable energy promotion is somehow stuck in government?
Yes, unfortunately, in Israel, energy policy is not a main political issue. In other countries, every president has to show what his energy policy is. In Israel, this is not the state.
Why isn't there more interest, political interest, in renewable energy in Israel?
I just think that there are two other issues which decision makers are more concerned about, and this should not be so. Energy is a vital resource. We are using it, we need it, and we need to manage it more sustainably. that in a way that does not damage the environment and contribute to our economy. Israel has a lot of sun, it has a lot of resources, renewable resources, which it can utilize and contribute to better environment, better economy, and better climate.
Can this kind of disaster really be something that changes the political interest? I mean, we haven't seen an oil spill like this in Israel before. With the elections coming up, will this have any impact?
I very much hope so. The Prime Minister has visited the site a few days ago, and I think that this will be. I hope that this will be a milestone in a way for more renewable energies and more energy conservation and a shift in the government's policy. And the government is trying to do, but it's not doing enough. There is so much to do, and it is. I think it's very symbolic that this accident happened just on the launching of a very big conference on renewable energy. It is significant. It's a very significant event.
I guess time will tell, Mr. Segal. Please do stick with us because we have another report on a more optimistic note. Worries about global warming and resource depletion have spurred some U.S. communities to turn to ultra-sustainable housing. Known as earthships, these homes are made largely of recycled materials and rely on the sun and rain to keep them cut off from electricity and water networks.
Sprouting up across the desert of New Mexico, houses known as earthships are a different, more sustainable way to live. Tom and his family have been living in one for the past 16 years.
Our whole house ended up costing us about $200,000 to build, which is less than $100 a square foot, which is a pretty good price.
Not expensive to build and cheap to run as well. The sun provides electricity and rainwater is collected from the roof.
Well, we catch a few thousand gallons on a big summer storm, you know.
To help make the home fully sustainable, this water is used several times.
After you take the shower, that's your first use. It comes into your planter, that's the second use. Drops down into a well, goes into the toilet, what it's doing right now, and then it goes outside and for its last use.
But what makes these homes really different is the construction method used. Recycled materials reduce the building's carbon footprint. From glass bottles to old tires and tin cans, all sorts of things are given a new life.
This is just an interior partition wall made with reclaimed beer cans. Most of these cans came from the neighborhood here, just people dropping off their recycling goods.
There are around 600 earthships here based on the same principle. The colder north-facing side is well insulated, while large windows on the south face let in the sun.
So the winter sun comes in through glass on the south side of the building, heats the thermal mass, which we made by using reclaimed motor vehicle tires that are compacted with earth.
Rory is being helped on this building site by a dozen apprentices, some of whom hope to take earthship construction methods back to their home countries.
I'd like to build my own house in France to show others how to build this kind of house for themselves and to help build eco-villages based around sustainable homes.
Ultra-sustainable and cheap, the basic materials used also make these homes ideal for remote areas. Several earthships are already under construction in the deserts of Malawi.
So, Mr. Segal, as a person who analyzes potential new energy sources and such, renewable energies, is this all applicable? Is there potential for this? What about in Israel?
First of all, there are some examples, coincidentally not far from the oil spill that we've seen earlier, that are built using same techniques. They're using straw and mud. We have to remember that 40% of the energy consumed in developed countries is in homes and in buildings. And if we do want to move on to the post-carbon era and reduce our use of fossil fuels, we have to change our homes, we have to change the way that we are living. We don't really all have to move into tin houses, but some of these technologies and some of these building techniques are very useful, and they are inspiring architects worldwide to change the way our homes are built, which is also more healthy. We get more sun, we get better air and ventilation in our homes. So I think our homes in the future will be much different than the homes that we live in today.
So, I mean, obviously there has to be more government initiative behind this, no?
Yes, the government should regulate the market and demand from constructors to stick to the standards, which they do not today, of using better insulating homes and reusing the water. But there are also bottom-up initiative. People want to live in green homes, and they're even willing to pay more to live in these homes. So I hope that both government and the public will bring us greener and better homes.
Okay. Well, Mr. Noam Segal, thank you very much for joining us. We hope to have you on the show more often. Thank you. That concludes our Economy Magazine, your daily source for economic and financial reports at I24 News. I'm Binyamin Tjong-Alvares. Follow me on Twitter at Tjong-Alvares. Send us your comments via the feedback link on our site, and please do join us again tomorrow for more on the economy. Thank you.